So does Baker Mayfield suck now? Like, what's the deal with Baker Mayfield? Nobody wants Baker Mayfield anymore, and part of it is, I think, a little bit less about people don't view Mayfield as a positive asset, but more about there's just no specific team that he perfectly fits in that roster. I think that kind of is another aspect here, because it's not just about, are you a positive asset? You have to be a positive asset for a team that exists in the NFL, and it seems like a lot of teams already either have a quarterback or are planning on drafting one. That's what it seems. But I wanted to look at Mayfield's advanced statistics and see if there's something we can learn, because the reality is Mayfield was legitimately good in 2020 and legitimately injured in 2021. So what got worse, and what maybe can we learn from this? Is Mayfield actually not that good? Or is it the other way around? Is it Mayfield actually is good and that the injury was the only reason why? And what can the numbers tell us about it? So let's just jump into it. All right, so here we go, and there's going to be some explaining to do here, I think, with a lot of this stuff, so I will explain it all. On the top left in the smaller print, that's out of 38, so these numbers are where Mayfield ranked in specific categories out of the 38 eligible quarterbacks, and this is in 2021 and 2020. There were 38 for both. So the numbers the statistics that we're dealing with is big time throw percentage, turnover worthy play percentage, average depth of target, adjusted completion percentage, time to throw, passer rating, and finally PFF grades. So let's start with 2021. Big time throw percentage was solid at 16th, so he still made some big time throws. He still made some, splash plays is another way to view that, which is good. At least that still exists. The turnover worthy plays, though, was way worse. So just to be clear, first, number one would be best. So 30th is bad, but also worth noting his average depth of target. So this is, how far down the field he's throwing the football, was sixth most in football. So part of that blends together, right? Mayfield's throwing the ball down the field, which, in part is going to lead to some turnover worthy plays. That makes some sense. Also, a not great stat to look at, his adjusted completion percentage was 33rd. So right off the bat, you can see why the Browns weren't successful. His adjusted completion percentage was not good. And adjusted completion percentage, that's basically just, it's like completion percentage, but you're adjusting for drops or maybe for a receiver making a tough catch that probably shouldn't have happened. All that stuff is factored in, so it's just kind of a better completion percentage. And so when you add on that with him, putting the ball in harm's way, it's going to make things difficult. Time to throw was 10th most in football, so he did hold on to the ball for a little bit. And then, just good sort of, overall stats, passer rating and PFF grade, he was 29th at both. In the year of our Lord 2020, his big time throw percentage was up from 2021, solid in both, a little bit better in 2020. Turnover worthy play percentage, though, was way better in 2020 than it was in 2021. So that was his biggest jump. That and adjusted completion percentage were his biggest jump. His average depth of target dropped a little bit. It went from 6 to 12, as in, I guess you could argue it went up, was maybe the better way to phrase it, because it was from 2020 to 2021. But like I said, adjusted completion percentage, 18th when it was 33rd last year. Time to throw, he was actually, he held onto the ball 6th longest. And again, just to be clear, number one would be the most time to throw. So the longer you hold on to the football, so that's how that works. So he held on to the ball for a long time in 2020 and a relatively long time in 2021 as well. And his overall numbers were way better. His passer rating was good. His Pro Football Focus grade was better. So they say his tape was even better than what the numbers would suggest. One of the things I wanted to check was this. So this is Baker Mayfield's passing pressure grades. So I'm using PFF grades. It's a good tool to use. Again, people don't love PFF, but I think it's better than any other stat in my opinion. That's how I view it. And under pressure, he was basically the same in 2020 and 2021, which is interesting because that tends to be a stat that fluctuates a lot more. It's the kept clean stuff that's really surprising. He went from the 8th best quarterback in 2020 when he was kept clean, which was also his overall PFF grade in 2020, to the 27th best when kept clean. Why could this be? I don't really know. Maybe it's something with the lack of receiver talent. that happened in 2021 of guys kind of falling off. That's maybe something, but I really don't know. That's a weird thing because that doesn't happen. That's very rare for it to happen. So if you are someone who believes it was just the injury is why Mayfield kind of fell off, I think this would actually support your argument because this is a stat that typically stays pretty consistent. So it's especially rare to see that big of a drop. I also looked over at when he, held onto the ball for over 2.5 seconds versus under 2.5 seconds, because that tends to be when pressure arises, is over or under. And in 2020, he was pretty much good at both. I mean, he had the 9th best PFF grade when he got rid of the ball under 2.5 seconds, 12th best when it took him over 2.5. Whereas in 2021, he was better when he held onto the ball for, over 2.5 seconds. But either way, not great numbers for either of those categories. Although, again, one thing I will say is that typically under 2.5 seconds, for the most part, not always, but that tends to be a bit more of, what the offense schemed up and can you execute that? Whereas when you're taking more than 2.5 seconds, it tends to be more of can you make something happen? And that's actually kind of where you see, I think, real quarterback value happen. So, him going from 12th to 21st, that's not as big of a jump as 9th to 32nd. And I think it's fair to say for the under 2.5 seconds part, it might be more of the situation around him falling off in 1 year, more so than him falling off. Although he clearly did also take a step back into over 2.5 seconds range as well. Over here, I'm always interested in this stuff. This is his PFF grades in terms of passing depth. So 0 to 9 yards down the field, 10 to 19 yards down the field, or 20 plus yards down the field. What did he grade relative to his peers? In 2020, he was pretty good at everything, but definitely was a little better the closer to the line of scrimmage he got. In 2021, he was awful at that 10 to 19 range. And again, this is out of about 40 quarterbacks, not out of 32. So he wasn't worst in the league, but he wasn't good. He wasn't that far off from worst in the NFL at that. And 20 plus, still not great. Solid at 0 through 9. That wasn't an issue with him even last year. So again, if you're going to put the blame on the shoulder, these numbers back that up because it's the further down the field that he started struggling with, but closer, he wasn't struggling as much with it. Finally, just looking at this right here, this is just where PFF graded the talent for the Cleveland Browns in the past 2 seasons. You see that in 2021, 11th best pass blocking and 27th best receiving core, whereas in 2020, best pass blocking and 11th best receiving core. So he went from the best pass blocking offensive line unit and a tier 2 wide receiver unit to the a tier 2 pass blocking unit and a nearly bottom 5 receiving core. That's tough. So I guess my stance on it, as someone who has now evaluated all of the draft quarterbacks, I think Baker Mayfield is someone you should absolutely take a chance on. Here's where things get weird with Baker Mayfield. Again, for me, the numbers I think there's a big enough chance from looking at them for me to believe that the only reason that he took a step back was because of the injury, that I'm willing to, give up some draft capital to keep him or to get him on my roster. I think that makes sense. But the issue is he's in the last year of his rookie deal. So he's getting $19 million this year, which is a steal. But the issue is if you don't have a quarterback, there's not really a team left that's trying to be competitive this year and doesn't have a quarterback. Tampa Bay would have been the perfect team for him, I think. But then with Brady coming back, well, now they're not interested. So for 1 year, you're getting good value. But the really kind of way to view it is there's 2 options. Either Mayfield sucks and then you wasted a year, or Mayfield is good, but now you have to pay him big money. And the chances of him being elite, I don't think are great. I think he's better than what he was last year. But I'm not even sure if he's as good as he was 2 years ago. And even if he is, that's not a star quarterback. We're still talking about a, I think at his ceiling, he's that next level down, a tier 2 quarterback, if you will. So if that's his ceiling, I'm not sure if you want to pay him big money. So that's where things get tough. Granted, I think there's worse options. I'd rather go with him than Mitchell Trubisky. I would. Call me crazy. So that's how I view it. So it's weird. There's been, speculation that the Browns might have to just cut him, or they might have to actually do sort of the Brock Osweiler thing of giving up draft capital to get somebody to take him on. I still think for a team like Seattle, just take a shot. Like see what happens. Take a flyer on him. I'd rather do that than Drew Lock, who I'm also interested in. But, again, you're taking flyers on guys, right? If you're the Steelers, hey, take a chance. That's how I view it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.